Rh negative is very rare. Most of the world didn't have it until colonization started in the 15th century.
Imagine your blood type isn't just fluid running in your veins, but a key to an ancient survival story passed down for millennia. Recent discoveries reveal hidden genetics that change what we know about human survival. Some of us might hold secret roles from the past, waiting to awaken. What part do you play in this unfolding mystery? The evolutionary glitch. In the year 1940, two scientists named Carl Landsteiner and Alexander Wiener were investigating a medical tragedy that had affected families for generations. They discovered something strange on the surface of our red blood cells. Most humans had a specific protein they decided to call the rhesus factor, or Rh for short. If you have it, you are Rh positive. If you don't, you are Rh negative. This might seem like a small, uninteresting detail, but in truth, this tiny missing piece of the genetic puzzle started one of the most puzzling mysteries in biology's history. Usually, evolution is very efficient. If a certain trait makes it harder for a species to have babies and pass on their genes, that trait eventually disappears. It is a slow process called natural selection. This is where things take an unexpected turn. When an Rh negative mother is carrying an Rh positive baby, her immune system, which usually protects her, starts to see the baby as a threat. It attacks the baby inside the womb. Before modern medicine stepped in with a shot called RhoGAM in the late 60s, this biological clash was often fatal for the child. The mother's body would create antibodies to attack the baby's blood cells, leading to a condition called hemolytic disease. So, if we strictly follow Darwin's law of natural selection, Rh negative blood should have vanished thousands of years ago, because it comes with a heavy reproductive cost. Each generation, fewer and fewer people would carry the trait until it disappeared completely from the human gene pool. But that's not what happened, which makes it even more intriguing. Some researchers call this the genetic purge theory. They argue that at various points in history, a large portion of humanity was wiped out because their blood types simply didn't mix well with the local population. It was a silent filter, or a biological wall, that prevented certain lineages from growing. In large parts of Asia and Africa, this purge was almost complete. In many places, the Rh negative trait is so uncommon, it barely shows up in the numbers. But in Western Europe and some tribes in North Africa, the situation is very different. Rather than disappearing, the trait held its ground. In places like the Basque region between Spain and France, nearly 1 in 3 people carry this dangerous mutation. This leads to the big question that scientists are still trying to answer. Why would nature preserve a trait that makes reproduction more difficult? Why would evolution allow such a life or death struggle between a mother and her unborn child?
If a rhesus positive and a rhesus negative parents were to have an offspring.
If this were just a mistake or a random glitch, it would be gone. The fact that it stayed, and even thrived in specific pockets of the globe, suggests that being Rh negative might offer a secret benefit that outweighs the risks. Nature might have been willing to lose a few lives in exchange for a survival advantage against something else. We are starting to realize that being negative isn't about what you are missing. It might be about what that empty space allows your body to do differently. If nature was trying to select against this blood, why did it fail? Could it be that Rh negative wasn't a mistake, but a deliberate clearance of genetic space? This takes us into an idea that sounds like something you'd hear in a sci-fi story, but it's becoming a real area of research. What if that missing protein created a gap that something else stepped in to fill? What if this is actually a genetic reset, where the body decided to scrap the old instructions and start fresh with something completely new? When we talk about being Rh negative, we often focus on what is not there. The very name tells you that something is missing. In genetics, this isn't just a small mistake in the DNA, it's a break. Scientists discovered that the RHD gene, which holds the instructions for the famous rhesus protein, is completely missing in people with Rh negative blood. It's like an entire chapter being ripped out of a book. For a long time, researchers thought this was just a random loss or a glitch that happened somewhere along the way and stuck around. They believed the body simply adapted and moved on without it. However, the way our DNA works is much more complex. Think of your genome like a crowded city. When you tear down a massive building in the middle of a city block, the entire neighborhood changes. The traffic flows differently. The sunlight hits new spots, and people start using the empty space in ways they never could before. This is exactly what happens on a microscopic level. When that RHD gene was deleted, it didn't just leave a hole, it changed the behavior of everything around it. Most of our DNA is made up of what scientists used to call junk DNA. They are non-coding and don't build proteins. For years, we thought it was just leftover junk from millions of years of evolution. But we were wrong. That so-called junk DNA is actually a complex control panel, telling other genes when to activate, how strongly to respond, and when to stay silent. When the RHD gene disappeared, this control system had to adjust and find a new balance. This is the heart of the genetic reset theory. Some scientists now believe that this deletion acted like a switch. By removing the rhesus protein, the body gave the surrounding non-coding DNA a chance to wake up and start experimenting. This reset could have altered how certain proteins are produced in other parts of the body, especially in the brain. It's a bold idea because it suggests that your blood type might actually shape the way your brain is wired. If this sounds far-fetched, just think about how deeply connected our bodies really are. The same chemicals flowing through your blood also send signals to your brain, triggering feelings like fear, excitement, or focus. By changing the genetic landscape, this deletion might have opened the door to a new kind of human experience. It's not just about blood anymore, but about a possible shift in how the mind interprets the world. Being Rh negative could have given a clean slate, a biologically fresh start that allowed a different set of survival tools to develop. Recent studies have explored whether this genetic shift affects things like how we handle stress or how quickly our nerves send signals to our muscles. If the RHD gene was like an outdated machine, its removal might have helped the rest of the system run leaner and faster. This isn't about being better or worse. It's about being specialized. It's about a group of humans who, through an unusual twist of fate, ended up with a slightly different operating system than the rest of the population. This gap in the blood might actually be a window into the mind, a window that gives an advantage against an invisible foe. While everyone focused on physical traits, the key was how this new system responded to threats unseen by the naked eye. It makes you wonder what kind of enemy could be so deadly that the body rewired its own brain just to stay ahead. To uncover that answer, we need to look at a silent killer that has been living alongside humanity for thousands of years. To understand why a certain blood type remains common despite its risks, we need to consider the invisible challenges humans have faced over time. One of these is a small parasite called Toxoplasma gondii. Many people haven't heard of it, but it's estimated to live in nearly a third of the global population. It usually gets into our bodies through undercooked meat or contact with outdoor cats. In most people, the immune system keeps the parasite in check, but it doesn't just stay inactive, it tends to target the brain. For decades, scientists thought this parasite was mostly harmless to healthy adults. However, researchers like Jaroslav Flager at Charles University began uncovering a chilling side effect. Toxoplasma is a master of mind control in the animal kingdom. When it infects a mouse, it actually rewires the mouse's brain to lose its natural fear of cats, making it an easy target, so the parasite can jump back into a feline host. In humans, the effect is more subtle, but just as real. It can slow down our reaction times and even change our personalities. This is where the Rh-negative mystery gets more interesting. Researchers discovered that people with Rh-positive and Rh-negative blood respond very differently to this infection. In several surprising studies, It seemed that the Rh-positive factor provides some protection. Those with Rh-positive blood who carry the parasite tend to keep their reaction times steady. But for Rh-negative individuals, the effects are quite different. When infected, their reaction times can slow down quite a bit. Some studies even suggest they might be up to 3 times more likely to have traffic accidents because their brains take a little longer to respond to danger. This creates a fascinating evolutionary puzzle. If Rh-negative blood makes someone more vulnerable to a parasite that was widespread in ancient times, why didn't it vanish? The answer might be a simple balance between benefits and drawbacks. In places where wildcats and this parasite were rare, like parts of prehistoric Europe, Rh-negative people didn't face the same risks. Without the parasite threat, they might have had a natural advantage, being quicker and more alert than others. This slight advantage, in places without the parasite, could help explain why the Rh-negative trait stayed around in some regions. It's all about biological trade-offs. Evolution wasn't aiming for a perfect human, but for traits that worked best in each environment. In some places, being Rh-positive offered protection against a parasite that affected the brain. In others, being Rh-negative gave a natural speed and alertness that helped hunters succeed. Recent large studies from 2024 and 2025 are still exploring how this blood type might also relate to things like IQ or personality traits, such as rule following and suspicion. But this advantage wasn't just a random mutation that appeared out of nowhere. It didn't begin as a simple mistake in modern human DNA. When scientists traced the origins of this protective trait, they had to look much further back than expected. It was inherited from an extinct relative who survived the harsh conditions of the Paleolithic era. To truly understand where this blood type came from, we need to go back to a time when humans weren't the only intelligent beings on the planet. The ancestral signature. For a long time, the story we were told about our origins was pretty straightforward. Modern humans left Africa, replaced all other species, and became the only intelligent beings on Earth. But as we study our blood more closely, that story is starting to unravel. In early 2025, genetic researchers made a breakthrough that completely changed what we thought we knew about the Rh-negative factor. By using advanced computers to scan ancient DNA,
1,000 years ago, to scientists in Colombia who made the discovery of the DNA of the ancient remains.
they found that specific clusters of genes linked to Rh-negative blood didn't start with us. They were actually present in Neanderthals who lived in Europe long before our direct ancestors arrived. This takes us back to the Ice Age, where frozen ground stretched for most of the year and predators roamed. Neanderthals had survived in this harsh place for hundreds of thousands of years, their bodies adapting to the cold, dim light and the local diseases in the soil and water. When modern humans arrived in Europe around 45,000 years ago, they were like strangers in a land that was anything but welcoming. They didn't have the internal defenses to survive the local germs or the harsh climate. This is where the merging happened. Our ancestors didn't fight or avoid the Neanderthals. They lived alongside them and had children together. Scientists call this interbreeding, but you can think of it as a huge biological software update.
The discovery in a San Jose lab is being called a breakthrough by scientists in the medical field that are resistant to antibiotics.
By having kids with Neanderthals, modern humans borrowed genetic code for survival. These ancient genes acted like a shortcut, giving our ancestors an immune system already adapted to the European environment. Among those shared genes were the markers for the Rh blood system. The stone and bone story of the Ice Age suggests that these Neanderthal traits were like a survival kit. While the Rh-negative deletion itself is a human event, the surrounding genetic neighborhood is packed with Neanderthals. These archaic genes helped us fight off European pathogens and parasites that our African ancestors had never seen before. In exchange for some reproductive difficulties, we gained a high-speed defense system that could handle the unique threats of the North. This is why you see the Rh-negative trait peak in places where modern humans and Neanderthals lived side by side for thousands of years. Some of the most recent data from 2025 show that people with high concentrations of these gene clusters often have immune systems that respond differently to modern viruses. It is as if a part of you is still living in the Ice Age, ready to fight off prehistoric threats that the rest of the world has forgotten. This inheritance isn't just a fun fact about your family tree. It is a functional part of how you stay alive. It proves that we aren't a pure species. We are a mix of different survivors who came together during the hardest times in human history. When you look at a map of Rh-negative blood today, you see where those ancient human Neanderthal unions were most successful. It's like seeing the fingerprints of an extinct cousin who still lives on through us. We are the survivors of a prehistoric merger. In some places, that ancient hybrid blood didn't just survive, it became dominant. In certain remote areas, this genetic trait became so common that it influenced entire cultures and languages. But how could a blood type shake an entire society? To grasp how a blood type could shape a whole society, we need to explore groups of people who remained isolated while the rest of the world changed around them. If you look at a map of where Rh-negative blood is most common, you will find yourself staring at two very specific spots. One is the Basque Country, a rugged area between Spain and France, which holds the world title with nearly 36% of its people carrying this trait. Close behind is Ireland, especially along its western shores, where the frequency hits a staggering 32%. This is more than double the average for the rest of Europe. For a long time, the only explanation was that these people lived in remote areas where their genes stayed locked in place, protected from the outside world. By early 2026, scientists are no longer focused on the idea of isolation. We now understand that these hotspots aren't just random places on the map, they're ancestral refuges. Take the Basques, for example. They speak a language unlike any other in the world, and their genetic markers go back to before farming even began. This means they're direct descendants of the original hunter-gatherers who made it through the last ice age. In Ireland, the high frequency of this blood type is part of what scientists call an adaptive package. It's often linked with specific immune system genes known as HLA types, which likely provided a tailor-made defense against the unique diseases found in the cold, damp climates of Northern Europe. This is a really exciting way to think about our DNA. If genetics is like the book of life, then epigenetics is how we decide to read and interpret the story. It shows how our environment and actions can act like switches, turning certain genes on or off. Scientists have found that some people carry the Rh gene, but their bodies silence it with chemical tags, meaning Rh negative isn't just a missing piece of DNA, but a flexible state where the body decides how to express that gene depending on the surroundings. This reveals how dynamic and responsive our biology really is. The idea that this blood type acts like an epigenetic alarm or survival switch is truly fascinating. Researchers like Jaroslav Fleger have observed that Rh negative individuals often show heightened sensitivity to environmental stressors, which goes beyond just parasite responses. Large health studies reveal interesting patterns. Rh negative women tend to report better physical health, but experience differences in overall well-being, while men with this blood type often have increased sensitivity to allergens and even distinct personality traits. These patterns aren't random. They reflect an ancient adaptive signature that helped small survivor groups endure some of the toughest periods in human history. It's a reminder of how our biology is shaped by the challenges our ancestors faced. This idea of the ghost in the code is a way to understand how our biology holds on to memories of past challenges. It reflects how certain blood types have been shaped by tough conditions like cold climates and diseases. Instead of being something mysterious, it's more about how humans have adapted over time. Groups like the Basques, Irish, and Berbers have kept this blood type because it helped them survive when others didn't. This blood acts like a survival switch, waiting for tough times to come. It's a simple part of us that helps keep our genetic variety intact. While most people fall into the usual Rh positive or negative groups, there's a rare few whose blood doesn't fit into this system at all.
Rh negative blood, one of the most unusual blood types, interact with other blood types.
For them, this blood is so unique and precious, it's known as golden. The mystery of Rh negative blood is already pretty unusual, but there's an even rarer type that sounds like something out of a movie. Most people are either Rh positive or Rh negative, but a tiny group has none of the 61 possible Rh antigens at all. This rare blood type is called Rh null. Because it's so rare and incredibly valuable for transfusions, doctors have nicknamed it golden blood. To put it in perspective,
Blood type so rare, this blood group is known as Rh null, and scientists are calling it the golden blood type.
since it was first found in an indigenous Australian woman back in 1961, only about 50 people worldwide have been identified with golden blood. Being one of 50 people on a planet of billions is more than just a fascinating fact. It's also a very big responsibility. If you have golden blood, you're the ultimate universal donor for anyone with rare Rh types, meaning your blood can save many lives. But there's a serious downside. Because your blood lacks all those proteins, you can only receive Rh null blood yourself. With fewer than 10 active donors worldwide, even a simple accident can have serious consequences. For those with this rare blood, life means making careful choices. Some avoid traveling to places without advanced blood banks, while others always carry special medical cards. Many start donating blood regularly from a young age so it can be frozen and saved, not just for others, but as a backup for themselves. It's such an irony. They carry the most life-saving blood on the planet, yet they're among the most vulnerable. This rarity even impacts their health in other ways. The Rh protein actually helps give red blood cells their shape. Without any of those proteins, their cells are abnormally shaped and fragile, leading to a lifelong struggle with anemia. The advancements in 2026 are truly promising. Using CRISPR to mimic the natural regulator mutation and create synthetic Rh null blood could transform the future for those with golden blood.
Blood group system. Be Rh positive in the Rh system, as well as being K positive in the Kel system, and so on.
Instead of being a rare and risky condition, this breakthrough could turn golden blood into an abundant, life-saving resource that helps thousands in need, especially during emergencies or surgeries. It's a positive step toward addressing a problem that has been a challenge for a small number of people. Seeing these breakthroughs unfold reminds us that blood is more than just a biological fluid. It's a complex system we're just beginning to understand and influence. Whether you have golden blood or the more common Rh negative type, you carry a heritage shaped by thousands of years of survival. These rare blood types help scientists explore the boundaries of human health and show that our differences are an important part of what makes us human. Even if you're not golden, being Rh negative means you have a natural resilience built into your very survival. We often focus on those who receive help, but rarely consider the design behind those who give. There's a reason why some people are made to be universal donors. It's not just chance, but a role shaped by evolution itself. The Guardian Protocol. When we think about survival of the fittest, it often sounds like a competition where everyone looks out just for themselves. The strongest lion gets the food, and the fastest deer escapes danger. But with O-negative blood, that idea doesn't quite fit. If you have O-negative blood, you're known as a universal donor. Your red blood cells can be safely given to almost anyone without causing a reaction.
From genetic studies that people with blood type O, the commonest blood type, are less likely to do so.
You're essentially a natural helper. On the flip side, if you need blood, your options are limited because you can only receive blood from another O-negative donor. This raises a big question for biologists. Why would nature create someone who can give blood to nearly everyone but can only receive from a very limited group? From a purely individual survival perspective, this seems like a major disadvantage. If evolution cared only about the survival of the individual, this blood type should have disappeared long ago. But what if evolution isn't focused just on individuals, but on the survival of the group? This is where the Guardian paradox comes in. The idea that some genetic traits exist not just to help you survive, but to protect and support the survival of your entire community. In biology, this is called altruism. It refers to an individual performing an action that is costly to itself, but benefits everyone else. While your blood type isn't a conscious choice, the way it works creates a unique form of obligate altruism. Because O-negative blood lacks the A, B, and Rh antigens, it is the only blood paramedics can use when they don't have time to test a patient's type.
The negative thing would be that the job can be stressful. You are constantly dealing with patients' lives.
This means that about 7% of the world's population is biologically hardwired to sustain the emergency needs of the other 93%. It is a social and biological loop where a tiny minority protects the majority. Imagine how valuable those O-negative members were in such a harsh world, while others faced the risk of dying from wounds or childbirth complications because their blood types didn't match. These individuals could step in and save lives. They were like mobile pharmacies, offering a safety net that kept the whole tribe alive and thriving. Their presence could mean the difference between survival and extinction for the entire group. This changes how we see ourselves completely. If you have this blood type, you're not just someone with a rare medical trait. You belong to a unique line of guardians. Your ancestors were the heart of their tribes, the ones who gave the life-saving gift that kept the human story alive through the toughest times. Some sociologists even say that knowing you're a universal donor shapes a special identity. Studies show that people with O-negative blood often feel a strong sense of loyalty and moral responsibility. You carry a biological signature that puts the well-being of the group above your own. Even the risks tied to this blood type, like maternal-fetal incompatibility, show that nature was willing to gamble on the individual to keep the community strong. By maintaining a variety of blood types, tribes were better equipped to survive local diseases and threats. You were designed to be a lifeline, a living, selfless technology that has been safeguarding humanity long before we even had written history. As we look forward to the coming century, that lifeline is changing once more. We are entering a time when we can finally unravel the full story hidden in our genes.
Well, actually, our blood is classified into different types indeed, and that's actually linked to the presence or the absence of certain antigens.
And what we discover at the end might be even more unexpected than the journey to get there. Right now, in 2026, we are finally uncovering the mystery behind the Rh negative. For a long time, people explained the unknown with stories about ancient astronauts or lost civilizations because the reality seemed unusual for regular biology. But the real discovery, the Crawford revelation, is actually more interesting and based on solid science. This discovery flipped the script on how we even identify blood types. Scientists discovered that some people have a specific variant called the Crawford antigen. In regular lab tests, these individuals appear to have Rh-positive blood, but at a molecular level, their RhD gene is completely missing. Biologically, they are Rh-negative. Their bodies use a mutated version of a different gene to produce a protein that looks like the Rh-positive one. This discovery had a big impact on blood banks and hospitals, especially in communities of African descent, where the Crawford variant is more common. It created a unique situation. If you have the Crawford variant and want to donate blood, you're classified as Rh-positive because your blood could cause a reaction in someone who is Rh-negative. But if you need a transfusion, you have to be treated as Rh-negative. Receiving Rh-positive blood based on a quick test could trigger an immune response. Even during pregnancy, Women with this variant require the same precautions as other Rh-negative mothers to protect their babies. This molecular complexity shows that the rhesus system is much more than just a simple positive or negative classification. It highlights how our bodies have adapted in clever ways, even when a whole gene is missing. When we combine this new information with what we already know, the idea of an alien origin becomes less convincing. Instead, it reveals that people with this variant are a unique part of our world, shaped by ancient genetic mixing, surviving through Ice Age challenges, and playing a protective role within their communities. The significance of our blood lies not in its origins, but in the direction it points us toward. By exploring the Crawford revelation and the genetic switches it reveals, we are gaining more knowledge that could strengthen the resilience of humanity as a whole. Your blood connects a deep prehistoric history with a future where we fully understand how to survive and thrive. It carries 35,000 years of survival into the present, embodying a legacy that once helped save our species and may do so again. Your blood type is a story of survival and strength. As a guardian or sentinel, you carry an ancient legacy that once saved humanity, with secrets still flowing in your veins. Do you know your blood type? What secrets do you think it could reveal about you? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, click on the next video on your screen. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries.